Nigeria's President Muhammadu Buhari is seeking a review of eligibility criteria for debt forgiveness for developing nations of the world, facing what he described as unsustainable debt burdens. He said there is an urgent need to consider expansion and extension of the Debt Service Suspension Initiative, DSSI, to include all developing, least developed countries and small island developing states. President Buhari made the appeal while he was delivering a speech at the 76th United Nations General Assembly in New York. Meanwhile, the Debt Management Office announced on Tuesday that Nigeria has raised a total of $4 billion through Eurobonds. According to the DMO, the funds were raised after an intensive 2 days of virtual meetings with investors across the globe. Joining me live from Ado-Ekiti, the Ekiti State capital, is Governor Kayode Fayemi. Good to have you on this day live, the Sunday Talk Show, Dr. Fayemi. Welcome to the program.
Good afternoon, Dr. Abati. It's good to be on your program.
Well, thank you very much for joining us. But before we talk about debt cancellation and debt burden and debt service to revenue ratio, let's start with the Southern Governors Forum. The Southern Governors Forum resolved that they will pass anti-open grazing laws, and they've done so. But in the course of the week that just ended, there was a controversy between the chairman of the Southern Governors Forum and the governor of Kaduna State, Nasir El-Rufai, and with the two of them, accusing each other of, one part, that's El-Rufai, saying that the attempt by Southern governors cannot be sustained and that it doesn't make sense to ban open grazing. And then with, Governor Akeredolu saying, well, what Nasir El-Rufai wants to do is to promote open banditry. You are governor, you are chairman of the National Nigeria Governors Forum. What's your take on this matter? What's your concern about open grazing and the implications for security, for unity, for solidarity?
Thank you, Ruben. Well, anytime there's an altercation between any of my colleagues, it's something that I wholly feel uncomfortable about because it takes us away from the substance. In this case, on open grazing, I can tell you that we've taken a position as the National Governors Forum, and both sides of the divide are correct. On the one hand, we have all agreed at the level of the National Governors Forum, the Nigerian Governors Forum, that open grazing is outdated and we need to look for alternative modern livestock management approaches. All governors are agreed on this. And that's also why governors have all subscribed to the National Livestock Transformation Plan via the National Economic Council decision that was taken, chaired by the Vice President of the country. Now, the question is, how do we move from where we are and the deleterious effect of open grazing to where we want to be in terms of modern livestock management approaches? On the one hand, you have the position of the Southern governors that have said they would like an anti-open grazing legislative framework, which you can say is the legal approach to resolving this matter. On the other hand, the Nigerian Governors Forum collectively have argued that there must be support to those who want to engage in livestock management. And at the level of the states, all states that subscribe to the National Livestock Transformation Plan should receive support, just the way rice farmers receive support and cassava farmers receive anchor borrowers support from the central bank and other federal government agreed support initiatives like NERSAL, and that this could take the form of support to those who want to engage in ranching. And many states have already taken up ranching, both in the north and in the south. And that's why I say both sides are correct, in the sense that Nasiru El-Rufai, the governor of Kaduna State, is talking about ranching as an alternative way of stopping unrestrained open grazing and catering to the needs of those who embark on traditional open grazing approaches. And the southern governors are not opposed to that. They're not averse to that. All they're saying is, pending the time you're able to do that, there should also be a disincentive by way of law in ensuring that those who take advantage of the activities of herders, particularly non-violent herders, and then resort to violent crimes, need to be punished. That's punishing criminality. But in addressing criminality, we must also address causes of criminality, which I guess is what Governor El-Rufai is talking about. It's not a matter that really should lead to the kind of altercation we've seen, and I think it's not something that we would support at the level of the Nigerian Governors Forum. But the substance of the argument itself, they both have valid points, and we focus on that. How do we get support for those who want to go into ranching, those who want to go into sedentary grazing and milk livestock management, and how do we ensure that this does not affect those who are embarking on crop farming as well, so that their farms don't get destroyed in the course of grazing? That really should be the way all of us should look at this. And we should all come out of it with solutions for the common good, rather than altercations over I'm right or I'm wrong.
The southern part of Nigeria, out of the 17 governors of the southern states, at least one governor has said that, well, he doesn't support some of the resolutions of the governors of the 17 states of the southern part of Nigeria. Well, why is it so difficult to carry everybody along? And then in Ondo State, in fact, passed, in Ekiti State, to be specific, in fact, passed an anti-open grazing law as far back as 2016. Do the governors of the southern states, do they have the powers to enforce it? Will you have the cooperation of the police in Nigeria, the police reporting essentially to the federal government to enforce some of the laws that have been passed in some of the states, or the resolution with regard to open grazing by southern governors is just aspirational?
Well, Ruben, I'm sure you know that I do not speak for southern governors. I speak for the Nigerian Governors Forum. That is the body that has given me the mandate to be their spokesperson. So I wouldn't be able to comment on whether one governor or 10 governors have opted not to be in sync with their colleagues in the South. I'm not aware of this, but I can confirm to you, just as you rightly noted, that Ekiti State has had an anti-open grazing legislation since the period of my predecessor, Governor Ayo Fayose, in office. And we have not abrogated that law, and the law is still in force. Implementation takes various forms because we still have regular engagements between farmers and herders and the security institutions in the state, which encourages dialogue amongst both parties. However, we also ensure that there are options in dealing with that, options of fine if farm produce is destroyed by any herder. The herder is put in a position to pay for the damage done, and that is a consistent cooperative mechanism that we have. However, when it extends to kidnappers masquerading as herders and others wanting to use the liberal approach that we have in the state to perpetrate security threats, of course, we're very firm in implementation of the laws of the state, and the security institutions so far have cooperated with the state government on that.
Well, let me ask you about the Petroleum Industry Act. Many Nigerians were, well, at the first level excited that after 2 decades, we had the Petroleum Industry Act. But the Governors Forum has had, which you share, has had cause to complain about that law as passed, particularly with regard to the fact that the concerns of the Nigeria Governors Forum have not been taken along. Now the president has made proposals for amendment to the National Assembly. But those proposed amendments by the federal government simply ignore the concerns of the Governors Forum. What's your take on that?
Well, Ruben, I don't believe you're right to say that the proposed amendments ignored the concerns of the states. No, what has simply happened, I'm sure these things will keep taking incremental changes. The first that has been done, I believe, was aimed at addressing the composition of the board of the new limited company that has been created out of the Petroleum Industrial Act. However, there are other issues, and we've taken advantage of the communication sent to the National Assembly by the President to raise fundamental issues around the communication we sent to the President, which the President passed on to the Implementation Committee chaired by my brother, former governor of Bayelsa State, Timipre Silva. And that discussion is going on between the Nigerian Governors Forum and the Implementation Committee, because the issues we have raised are quite specific. One relates to ownership structure. We do not believe that the Ministry of Finance Incorporated and the Ministry of Petroleum Resources should be the sole owner of the company that has emerged out of the Petroleum Act, because we believe that the entire body of petroleum institution in our country is the product of the federation. It's not the product of the federal government. And we have suggested that the one body that belongs to both the federal government, the state government, and the local government is the Nigerian Sovereign Investment Authority, in which we are all shareholders. And if it is held in trust by the Nigerian Sovereign Investment Authority, then we're a lot more comfortable in seeing that as a federation company rather than a federal government company. That's one. The second concern we have expressed relates to the depletion of the federation account by the various percentages that have been earmarked for frontier states, for states that
host communities
of the petroleum product. And without prejudice to what the host communities deserve. And we don't have any problem with host communities benefiting from this, which, as a matter of fact, we feel should be at least 5%. We think that this necessarily should not lead to a depletion of the federation account or whatever is due to the federation account as a result of this. And of course, you know the third concern we've consistently raised, which we hope the signing of the Petroleum Industry Act would help us with. That is the whole elephant in the room around petroleum subsidy and the continued use of that to deplete federation accounts.
Well, President Buhari addressed the General Assembly of the United Nations, and he was talking about debt cancellation. And many Nigerians have expressed surprise. They say, well, why are we asking for debt cancellation when Nigeria continues to borrow? And even the chairman of the Economic Advisory Council of Nigeria tells the government that, look, the debt burden is too high. Debt service to revenue ratio at 97.7 is unsustainable and unimplementable. And yet we have this, boldness to go to the international community to say, well, we need debt cancellation. Is Nigeria in a good position to say cancel debt when it is very obvious that we accumulate this debt, but there's nothing to show in terms of concrete productivity? What do you think? Is the Nigeria Governors Forum on the same page with the President of Nigeria in terms of his strongest message at the 76th United Nations General Assembly?
Thank you, Ruben. Ruben, I don't know if you have read the full speech. With due respect to you on this particular point, I think that speech would qualify as one of the most informed, profound speeches that the president has given to an international global audience. I read that speech carefully, and I associate myself with virtually everything that the president said in that speech, whether it's on climate change or on debt cancellation, or on COVID-19, or on small arms proliferation, reform of the United Nations. It is a very sweeping, wide-ranging speech. And the president ought to be commended for the comprehensiveness of the speech that he delivered. Now, talking substantively about the issue you have raised around debt cancellation, the president was not speaking about Nigeria. He was speaking about reviewing the criteria for debt cancellation to all states, particularly beyond the highly indebted countries, the HIPC countries. And he was referring to this within the context of the deleterious impact of COVID-19 on the economies of small scales, economies of developing nations, and we also know that even the economies of the mature democracies or so-called advanced nations have been hugely affected by this. Yes, Nigeria is borrowing, and Nigeria is borrowing, in my view, for reasons that are specific, and the bulk of the borrowing, by the way, is what you would refer to as concessional lending. The bulk of what we're borrowing, when you look at the list of the items that have gone through the National Assembly in the past few weeks, which is what has generated this concern, you will see that these are specific issues around social investment in the context of COVID, around subnational support, and these are mostly borrowing that is the most attractive. 1%, 5 to 10-year moratorium. These are World Bank, IBRD, IDA lendings on the one hand. On the other hand, yes, you have the Chinese infrastructure lending. Again, they're specific. You know what it is for. When you say without much to show for it, I don't know what you mean by that, because I think it's clear what this borrowing is associated with. We may quibble over whether we should be using 97% on debt servicing, and that's a debate we can have. It's a separate debate. But as to whether we should borrow, I don't see anything outrageous in borrowing. Countries borrow. The issue is, what are you borrowing for? Are you borrowing for consumption, or are you borrowing for infrastructure development that would then aid economic growth? And I think the Buhari administration ought to be commended on that. Clearly, it would be great not to borrow, and it would be great to redirect the funds that we have to regenerative areas of our economy. But the question that we must all confront is that we have a revenue challenge. We don't have enough money to do those things that would enable us build an economy that responds to the yearnings of Nigerians, so that we can have a win-win situation in our country, and one that can help us become a much more productive economy rather than a consumption-driven economy. I don't think there's anything wrong in the president as a major voice in international affairs, particularly in Africa and the Black world, calling for a review of debt management arrangements in the world. I think it's something that is a positive call, in my view.
Well, I mean, except that with regard to Nigeria, many analysts, experts, they say that the problem with Nigeria is that we borrow money for consumption. All these long convoys that governors, your colleagues, I don't know whether that includes your good self, that you guys go about with, and the wastage, the leakages, and the money is not borrowed for concrete development. We can't see that connection in terms of inflow and outflow or outcomes. So that precisely is the problem. But as governor, you've been governor twice now. This is your second time around. Don't you think that state governments should do a lot more in terms of being centers of productivity rather than, centers of consumption and centers that are dependent on the federal system and the resource that comes from oil and non-oil sector?
Thank you, Ruben. The truth of the matter is that we need to do more to investigate what is happening at the subnational level. The states are not dependent on the federal. It's a misunderstanding of our federal system when analysts argue this way. Federalism, in its very simple definition, talk about coordinate federating units, not subordinate federating units. We are not. The subnationals are not subordinate to what you call the federal government. They are actually coordinate. And when you talk about federation account, it is not a largesse, it's not a gift from the federal government. It is what we both own and which we distribute in accordance with a formula that has been agreed and which is monitored by the Revenue Mobilization and Fiscal Allocation Commission. So I think we need to get rid of that misunderstanding of our federal principles. However, you do have a point that given the situation in which we have found ourselves, we need to be more parsimonious. We need to be more, we need to manage the finances of our states a lot more responsibly, and we need to do a lot more to generate revenue within the confines of our own states by ensuring that we create the enabling environment for ease of doing business and for generating more funds for the use of the citizens in our various states. And this is precisely what is happening. This is what the Governors Forum is doing, working with our colleagues to help improve the mechanisms for transparency, for fiscal responsibility in the states. And we're making progress, where it's not as good as we would like it to be, and COVID has actually gotten in the way over the last 1.5, 2 years. But I can tell you that the frivolity that you refer to of governors going in convoys is not something that is common amongst this generation of governors. As far as I know, and I should know as the chairman, I can also tell you that all those frequent travels that you're referring to, over the last 1.5 to 2 years, I can tell you we've only had 4 physical Nigerian Governors Forum meetings, and we meet monthly. But this time we meet virtually, and that saves our states a lot of money, rather than from just going to Abuja and meeting the way we used to do. And COVID has also forced us to look at new ways of managing our local economies and creative, innovative, knowledge economy-driven approaches to governance. And I think you will find this if you really do a much more diligent review of what is happening in the states.
Well, I have this idea that our states are not really very productive, and that many of our governors are not doing what they should do. But maybe we'll return to that later in the specific context of what is going on in Ekiti State.
But you know, perceptions sometimes don't go with reality.
No, with me it's not perception, it's analysis based on facts and what I know. But very quickly, let me ask you about value-added tax. The River State, Lagos State, other states, there's been this, back and forth about value-added tax. And now we have the Ministry of Finance and also the Office of the Attorney General of the Federation saying, look, VAT is on the exclusive legislative list. Senior advocates of Nigeria have had to remind the Attorney General of the Federation that no, item 58 in the Constitution on the third schedule does not cover the right of the government, the federal government, to collect VAT. But, what's your view on this? I know that this is likely to be a major issue, long-drawn, drawn-out issue in Nigerian politics.
Well, for us as the Nigerian Governors Forum, this is an issue that we're looking at both legally and policy-wise, and we are asking our experts to help us review the implications for states. But for now, our own take on this is that the Supreme Court should accelerate its decision on this so that we have clarity. What is needed is clarity over who should be in charge of collection of VAT, whether it's the Federal Inland Revenue Service or states. States that have gone to court believe clearly that this responsibility devolves according to their own understanding of what the Constitution says to states rather than the federal authority. Of course, the federal government believes otherwise. We would rather wait for the Supreme Court to take out a position on this. The important thing is that our tax system is problematic, confusing, and contradictory, and we need to do a lot more to begin to clarify things so that it can give for more efficient and effective collection of taxes.
Okay, let's discuss some politics. You were one of those people governors, members of the All Progressives Congress that went on pilgrimage, if I may use that phrase, to visit Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu. We had, another governor on this program the other day, Governor Akeredolu, who said, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu is the capo, the Chuchi Capi of the All Progressives Congress. And so we should expect that everybody will join that visitation pilgrimage train. You joined them, you went there. So why are you all guys just going to London to pay homage? Is it out of insecurity or out of brotherhood or out of support for the reported plan by Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu to be president or to throw his hat into the ring for the 2023 presidential election?
Ruben, I thought Governor Akeredolu answered this question, particularly your last gambit. He and I were in London together, yes, to see our leader, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, but he had absolutely nothing to do with 2023 presidential plans whatsoever. That's not the reason why we went there. Asiwaju had just had surgery. It's simply proper etiquette, behavior, both in the part of the country where I come from, but also generally, that when a friend, an elder, is undergoing health challenges, it would be improper on your part not to show solidarity and support. And that's simply what took us there. We wanted to associate ourselves with him at a time of need. And as an elder, as a mentor, and as a big figure in our political party, there's nothing wrong in also paying him a courtesy visit to check on him and see how he was faring. And we did that and we returned. It had nothing to do with 2023. Let me make that absolutely clear.
Okay, maybe your point earlier on about perception will be relevant at this point. Because the perception is that, there's this pilgrimage to London because, there's an attempt to project Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu. And some people have raised questions. Is he planning to be president of the United Kingdom or mayor of London? But, let me move away with that, from that very quickly and ask you a question about your party and this conflict, controversy about the caretaker committee that is led by Mala Bune, the governor of Yobe State. Do you have any anxieties with all these litigations that this could wrong-foot the party in the 2023 general elections? Where do you stand in terms of the politics within the party?
Well, where I stand is clearly that the party is moving forward. Local government congresses just held in the 36 states and the Federal Capital Territory. The state congresses are scheduled to hold on the 16th of October. We're all getting ready for that. And that would naturally dovetail to the national convention of the party. That's what I believe all of us are interested in. And, for us in Ekiti, we want this to be wrapped up quickly because we have the primaries for our gubernatorial elections in January. So the earlier we got over the preparation for installing the executive of the party, the better it is for us and to concentrate on our primary task of electing a candidate for the gubernatorial election in June. So we are very eager to have this process accelerated and completed.
No, I think you are dodging the question. I mean, my question was specific about the crisis within the party at the national level. Do you see the possibility of the All Progressives Congress imploding ahead of the 2023 general elections? Because it looks like your party is divided.
Well, Ruben, I'm not dodging your question. Your question is not the substance. Contentions are always going to happen. This is a big party with different tendencies, and there will be contention for and against. Let's keep on with the contention. We are reasonably confident that this party will produce the next government in this country in 2023. But before we get there, we're more focused on the country now. The party is more interested in stability and security in Nigeria. What is happening internally is something that we will resolve internally. And if some people refuse to exhaust all the internal mechanisms in the party and elect to choose a legal route to addressing whatever concerns they have, well, it's their prerogative. We cannot stop them from doing that. We just have to ensure that the party stands resolved to organize rather than agonize about its future.
Yeah, but what is your reaction to this general perception that the APC is already trying to rig the 2023 presidential election or the general elections by trying to intimidate, harass, coerce people to move into his fold, to create the semblance of a one-party state? Because we've seen a gale of defections recently, and the dominant view out there in the public is that, look, the government of the day is intimidating people to cross-carpet into his fold in order to hold on to power. As a scholar, apart from being a politician, you are a scholar primarily, and you've been in the civil society community for a long time. Do you think that this is the best for Nigeria?
Ruben, I clearly believe that Nigeria needs a strong opposition. A strong opposition is good for democracy, is good for strengthening and deepening our democratic project in the country. However, membership of a political party is an open entry, open exit arrangement. So people choose on the basis of what they consider to be in their own best interest to join a political party or to leave a political party. We can't second guess them for what they're doing, and we cannot describe it as intimidation. I'm a senior member of the All Progressives Congress, and I do not, for the life of me, see anyone intimidating anybody from the other side to join us. And you still have very vociferous members of opposition. My good brother, Nyesom Wike, is always on top of his voice, attacking our party, and you have several others in the opposition who are standing firm about their own views of how Nigeria's progress should be tended. So I don't see this as an issue. If people elect to join us for reasons best known to them, are you saying we should reject them from joining, even though the constitution of the country talks about freedom of association, Ruben? Is that what you're suggesting?
No, I spent enough time in Professor Mike Ikariale's constitutional law class to know that you can't, violate the constitution. But I put it to you, the other day, one of the vociferous voices that you talk about joined your party, Femi Kayode, and, the reactions have been quite mixed. What's your own reaction? You say it's welcome. You are quoting freedom of association, freedom of assembly, freedom of choice, freedom of expression.
It's free entry, free exit, Ruben. You know it yourself. Regardless of what one might think of the personality of Mr. Femi Fani-Kayode, he has his freedom of association. Yeah, I mean, whatever he chooses to do is his prerogative. We can't legislate against his constitutional rights. And I would just plead with those who are scandalized by his decision to join the APC grant him the right to exercise his constitutional position. That's all I can say about that.
Okay, let's talk about Ekiti State, which you govern. Ekiti State was one of those first states to endorse and embrace the idea of the Western National Security Initiative, popularly known as Amotekun. But still, we have issues of kidnapping, insecurity in Ekiti State. There are parts of the state that you govern that are, dangerous spots for even the people who live in the state. What are the challenges? What do you intend to do going forward to solve this problem?
Thank you, Ruben. Security is a permanent issue on the agenda of our state and on my agenda as governor of the state. As you know, Ekiti is the state that is on the outer boundary of northern and southern Nigeria, right from Kogi and Kwara. So some of the things that happen in the northern states do have an impact on our security in Ekiti State, just as it does in any other state around us here. And clearly, I have argued in the past, and I believe even on this, on Arise TV, that there is an inextricable linkage between the fallout of insurgency and banditry in the northeast and the northwest and the kidnapping that we're witnessing in some parts of the South. There's no debate about that. We all recognize it. However, our duty is to ensure that we protect the citizens on our watch. And we've been trying to do that consistently. Yes, we've had occasional issues of kidnapping in the state, and this is not just something that we're folding our arms against. We are, pulling together joint security initiatives between mainstream security institutions like the police and the military, and also our own local security network, the Amotekun that you referred to. As a matter of fact, I was with the Chief of Army Staff about 2 weeks ago, and he graciously approved a forward operating base, another one for us in the northern part of the state, so that can assist the police and our Amotekun in the Kwara-Kogi boundaries of the state, where we have had more than normal occurrences over the last few months. But the challenge ultimately is we must tackle this issue not on a state-by-state basis alone. The position that we take is that it must be comprehensively addressed nationally, whilst we do our bit at our various state levels. If we don't do it that way, you cannot stop infiltration from other parts of the country, because Ekiti is not an island. Something cannot be happening in Kogi, where you recently had a jailbreak, and you think that we'll be immune from that. Ekiti is the state next to Kogi State, and some of those elements might stray into our state. So we need to make sure that we find a mechanism to ring fence and protect our people, but at the same time contribute to the national security response strategy that would reduce the whole of this scourge that we're experiencing in the country. So it's a two-pronged approach that we have. Strengthening our own response mechanism locally by procuring equipment, providing incentives, and supporting the security institutions, but also ensuring that the national response strategy improves and working with the federal government to ensure that we reduce the spate of crime and criminality in the country. But more importantly, also addressing the root causes of this, unemployment, poverty, and such other challenges that are forcing people to become fodder for conflict merchants.
Okay, Governor Fayemi, we'll take a short break. I see many of your people in Ekiti State have been bombarding my phone with additional questions. But we'll take a short break and then we'll come back to some of those questions. Please stay with us. We'll be right back. It's still This Day Live on Arise TV. Welcome back to This Day Live, the Sunday talk show here on the Arise News channel. Our guest is still the governor of Ekiti State, Dr. Kayode Fayemi. Dr. Fayemi, thank you very much for staying with us. I told you earlier on that your constituents, the people of Ekiti State, they've been sending in questions. And one of those questions, let me see, I tried to write it down, is that yes, about 4 months ago, you tried to slash the salaries of government functionaries, including your own and that of the deputy, in order to cushion the effect of the cash crunch that the state is experiencing. What else are you doing to ensure that the state comes out of this situation?
Well, thank you, Ruben. Naturally, we must constantly review our finances in the state and also ensure that we create other opportunities for revenue generation. The step we took 4 months ago was a reluctant step, and as you may be aware, we have since restored the salaries, the subvention of the workers, apart from the political appointees. That's the only one that is still in that cost-cutting frame. But every other thing, we have relaxed and we've gone back to status quo ante. And we'll constantly review it that way. What led to that particular situation was the refusal of the NNPC to contribute its quota to the Federation account over the last 3 months. But I think the situation would appear to be improving, and we feel that we can ensure that we address the immediate challenge of the welfare of our workers. What we have done consistently is to say, whatever we need to do in order to keep the state economy flowing, we would not resort to anything that might impair the already difficult situations that workers and pensioners have found themselves post-COVID, in the context of COVID. So from get-go, from the minute I became governor, I made a pledge that salaries of workers will be paid as and when due, and I have not reneged on that promise. Pensioners also receive their pension as and when due without fail. Even though we may struggle over other things, operational expenses in the state, infrastructural issues, but even at that, we're still trying to meet our own quota of that. It's just in the nature of this declining economic situation that we must be creative and focus on those areas that would enable the economy of the state to grow. And that's what we're doing by expanding our agricultural reform and also our knowledge economy activities, as well as infrastructure development in order to encourage economic growth in the state. Those are the steps we're taking fundamentally so that we can win the state of funds from federation account exclusively. You know, we're one of those states that are derisively described as civil service states, and we need to get away from that ultimately, Ruben.
Well, Governor Fayemi, I have another question from concerned citizens of Ekiti State. And they're asking, I mean, why is it that you have been unable to do anything about the Ado-Ekiti to Akure Road, which is in a very bad state, despite promises you made that you will do something about that particular road?
Well, Ruben, I must thank you for that question and thank the citizen who has asked that question. I am embarrassed, and I'm sure the governor of Ondo State is equally embarrassed about the situation of that road, because we chose to take steps. Immediately I came into office in 2018 and got funding support from the Africa Development Bank, partly because Dr. Akume Adesina himself had traveled on the road, and he was very supportive when we approached him to help fund the reconstruction and dualization of Ado-Akure Road. But when we got that pledge, the federal government refused to give us permission to construct the road because it is their road, and they made it very clear to us that if we went ahead to do it without their permission, they would, one, not refund, and two, they will not allow us to toll the road so that we can recoup the money that we were borrowing from African Development Bank. It's not a gift, it's not a grant. We were going to borrow the money in order to fix the road. So that led to a ding-dong affair. We then transferred the pledge from the African Development Bank to the federal government, worked with Minister Fashola on this, and we're almost at a point now where the federal government is going to take that support and put it on the road. Because although the government awarded the road, the federal government awarded the road about 18 months ago, due to our pressure, to Dantata and Sewo, one of the big construction companies. But because the federal government has not funded the contractor, not much has happened, which is why we have worked with them to get this money out of the African Development Bank. And I want to reassure that particular citizen who asked the question that we are not relenting on this, but what we've done as an alternative was to fix the road, an alternative road between Ado-Ekiti through Ilawe, through Igbaraudo, connecting Ondo State for those who need an alternative route to use in order to go from Ekiti to Ondo State. We fixed that road, and that road is the one that many people use. But we are still working on the dualization and reconstruction of Ado-Akure Road.
Okay, a double-barrel question.
It's one of those invidious problems of federalism in our country.
Yeah, a double-barrel question as we bring this to a close. What is this person asking now? Yeah, okay. Another person says, by Friday this week that we are entering, it will be 25 years since Ekiti State was created. You have spent 7 years out of those 25 years. What's your assessment of what has transpired in those 25 years? And finally, the person asks, are you running for president in 2023? Your name having been bandied around as one of the possible candidates.
Ruben on Ekiti. Well, yes, it's true. We will be 25 on October 1st, 2021. Ekiti was established by General Abacha on October 1st, 1996. It's credit to the founding fathers of the state, and we will be honoring them, all those who contributed to the creation of Ekiti State. We have a comprehensive list of these elders and leaders, both posthumously and those that are still living, and we would be celebrating and honoring them in one of the activities that we would have in October to celebrate 25 years of Ekiti. But your question is, how far have we gone in those 25 years? Well, I grew up here. I went to school here, and I knew what this state used to be like growing up in the state. There's been significant progress, but it is not still what we want it to be. 25 years is, in the life of a state, is almost saying that we're a toddler. Unlike an individual, if you're 25, you're probably just out of university or graduate school looking for work or just employed. In the life of a state, it's a tiny bit, but there should be an indication of the growth and development that we are all expectant of. And I believe that clearly is beginning to show. The little acorns are gradually becoming
oak trees.
Mature trees, and we need to do more to build the Ekiti of our dream, the Ekiti of the dream of our founding fathers, and ensure that Ekiti is able to hold its own strongly in the Committee of State in the nation. As for your second question, Ruben, I have a job to do, which relates to your first question. I want to finish well as governor of Ekiti State. I want to do more to put Ekiti on a pedestal of growth and development in the period that is left for me in office. What the future holds, God knows. We will cross that bridge when we get there. For now, my primary responsibility is Ekiti State.
Well, very familiar response. I mean, that's what I get to hear on this seat every time when we ask people, politicians, what their plan is for 2023. But we would like to thank you very much, Governor Kayode Fayemi of Ekiti State and Chairman of the Nigerian Governors Forum, for joining us on this Day Live, this Sunday talk show. Thank you very much indeed.